Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. My name is Killian. I'm co-founder at Ruby Reese and I will also be your host. This week we're talking about one of the most important topics that you could possibly learn about in the dog world, and that is reading your dog's body language, reading the body language even of other people's dogs, and predicting what might happen and what types of things these dogs are trying to tell us with their body language. We're also going to have a look in particular in and around aggression and some of the warning signs that might come up. Some of these behaviours in context might be totally normal and very, very relaxed, and other times they might actually be signs that the situation could potentially sour. So without further ado, I am more than delighted to invite back to the podcast Nicole from Furry Paws in Galway, and I really hope you enjoy listening into the chat that we had. Nicole, welcome back to the podcast. How are you doing?
Great. How are you doing? So happy to be here.
Very well, thank you, and great to have you. Would you do us the pleasure, first of all, of introducing yourself once again?
Yep. So my name is Nicole. I'm from Galway and I am a dog trainer and man trailing instructor. So very excited to discuss this topic as it's one of my favorite as a dog trainer.
I was going to say it's a really, really cool topic. So today we're going to be talking all about body language and signs of aggression and what we should be looking out for with our dogs. It's a huge topic, so I can't wait to get into the weeds as fast as we can about it. But
Absolutely.
I suppose let's start off with a little bit of a general side. How much can we tell about our dogs and what they're feeling, I suppose, through their body language?
Absolutely. So we can tell so much just by looking at the dog and just their whole body, and their body language. And it's just a really great way to kind of connect more with your dog, and kind of it's kind of the communication really between yourself and your dog as well as dog and other dogs. So their dogs are really good at communicating with each other. Obviously they don't talk like we do, so this is their way of kind of discussing things when they meet. And it's really good because just as pet dogs, like the type of behavior and type of body language doesn't really change much from, like it's not different down in Cork than it is up here in Galway. They don't have like body language accents or anything like that. But it's just really, really good to kind of watch the whole picture. And we can just learn so much from it.
And actually, that's a good point, the whole picture, because I suppose body language is really about from like the tip of the tail to the tip of the nose, and from the ends of the paws to the right up to the back, right? It's like literally everywhere across the whole cross section of a dog's body, right?
Everything. Yep, even the eyes and the
Yeah.
whiskers and the ears, everything. You can just tell so much just by even watching. In general, even like if you're out on your own walk or whatever and you're watching other people's dogs interact, you can kind of take that home and compare as well to your dogs, because obviously, different breeds have kind of different ways of communicating in different body languages. So like pugs might not be able to do the same thing as Pomeranians, or and not all dogs are really created equal, but it's just a general consensus really of um how they can communicate with you.
Yeah. So I suppose we can make generalizations across all dogs. And then, like you mentioned already, their physiology might make a difference. So if they've a short tail or, kind of stand up ears or floppy ears, they'll have different ways of communicating. Is that a good way to kind of summarize into it?
Yes, exactly. So say like the tail of a Pomeranian, it's big and it's fluffy and it's out there. It'll look different as say like a Whippet, which has, no fur on the tail, no long hairs, things like that. Obviously theirs is longer behavior. So if you have like multiple dogs in your house, even, you can kind of go across the board and look at the differences between them, the small dogs as well versus the large dogs, and the, ears that go up versus the ears that stay down, things like that. You can just look at the different muscle movements as well.
And I'm guessing, apart from the physiology, then as well with behavior, because I suppose body language, in a sense, is behavior as well. I'm guessing, like everything to do with behavior, that there's a nature aspect and a nurture aspect. So they'll probably have kind of learned behaviors on top of, they might feel from within themselves that they want to express certain behaviors, but also I guess it's learned, if, and what I mean by that is, if it gets the reaction they're looking for, they're likely to repeat that behavior in that context in future, right?
Yeah, so that can go, say, with like dogs that are maybe reactive or fearful with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, say, like a dog that is fearful of another dog coming towards them, say they bark, and then the person continues walking by. So in that dog's mind, okay, I barked and the dog left, or whatever I was afraid of left. So therefore, I'm just going to do that again. And that
Mm-hmm.
worked for me. So there is a bit of, yeah, kind of conditioning and emotional aspects that go along with the body language as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really important to think about too, again, just to draw it to the whole picture of what's going on the outside as well as the inside.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose something that might be important to point out then in that case is that, it's about the individual and the context they're in, right? I'm sure that it'll make a huge difference of the context that's around them.
Absolutely, yes. So something to kind of think of, if the dog is a bit stiff or whatever, are we at the vet, or are we like opening the treat bag and we can't really get the treat bag open, and the dog is like, okay, I know there's a treat coming, so I'm gonna wait. Things like that. We have to look at where we are, what's going on around us, the noises in the background, everything like that. As well as like, is the dog feeling okay that day? Or, sometimes they might have a stomach ache, or they might be hurt or whatever, or it might be a new place for them. So just, yeah, always look at everything that's going around and the whole body as well. And we can always break it down into different sections, like the nose and the eyes and the tail, out to the tail as well, to just kind of tie that all in together.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place maybe to start. So we're starting off an investigation like we're little detectives here. And you mentioned stiff versus loose. So I suppose we're looking for clues because it's all about context. So we'll have to look at other things the dogs are doing too. But what might stiff posture versus loose posture indicate to you when we're looking at a dog's body language then?
Sure. So, the most common example, I suppose, would be when a dog is greeting another dog. So, if the dog is kind of coming straight at another dog, and their body is tight and it's a bit high up, um, that's kind of like an arousal kind of movement for the other dog. So you want to look at, like, where are we? Are we at our own, are we at that dog's own house? Or are we in like a neutral place? Or are we at the vet or whatever? You kind of want to look at the context of it, as well as some dogs just are, if they're young and they're just learning their way around things as well, and just kind of testing out the waters, as we like to say, and for the teenagers as well. So you want to kind of look at that. So if two dogs are kind of meeting head on, um, potentially that could be kind of like a stressful, or like they're kind of locking in on each other. And we want to kind of diffuse that situation as soon as we
Mhm.
can, and just kind of give each other space. Whereas if two dogs are meeting and they kind of go in like a C shape and kind of around, and they have soft body posture and tails, things like that, then that's grand. They can go on and meet each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned previously when we were speaking about this about direction of movement as well. So What can the direction of movement tell about dogs and their interactions, particularly if they're moving towards or versus moving away from a situation or an individual? What can these type of signs tell us?
Sure. So it would be different like I said, depending on the dog. So some dogs, they are bred to go forward when they're nervous. So like the German Shepherds, they would go forward and then kind of retreat because essentially that's just what they were bred to do.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they're aggressive, but it can be something that they do. Versus like if you see, a small dog and he sees a large dog coming and the dog like runs behind you and kind of crouches down and makes themselves smaller, that could be, they're afraid of the situation. They want you to kind of step in and handle that big dog
Hmm.
and check him out first before he gets over there. So, there's different things. Whereas like if two dogs, we might have missed the signals, we might have missed the tight body, and the stiff body of two dogs, and then they start going towards each other. That could potentially be an issue as well, because like I said, it's not natural for dogs to go head on at each other.
Hmm.
Even when they play, they do kind of like a bow, or they'll have really soft language, they'll really soft eyes, they kind of turn to the side a little bit, and they usually play side by side as opposed to just straight on, like they
Hmm.
don't really do like football plays or there's that's an American term, but
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so you always want to look again, like, just okay, is the dog going forward because they're interested in what's going on? Or are they coming back because they're worried and they want you to handle, which is also a great thing for dogs to do. I love that when dogs look at the human for kind of
Hmm.
what it is that the next step is. That's just great communication between the owner and the dog as
Shows they trust you, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, like, if they're not sure what to do and they kinda give you a quick glance and you're like, "Oh, okay, I got it." Like, I understand you're not sure what to do or you might be a little worried. I love that. That's a beautiful thing.
Hmm. Yeah. And another thing as well, talking about general body language, I suppose making themselves bigger or making themselves seem smaller as well are kind of two opposite things, but I guess both things could be good or bad for the situation at hand, right?
Exactly, yes. So you have to again like look at what's going on. So if they're making themselves smaller, they could even be kind of playing around. So sometimes two dogs of the same size, like they could make themselves kind of curl around and the other dog can whatever, drag them around the floor like they want.
Hmm.
It's important to look at the body language for that. Or if they make themselves bigger, they could be worried about something and they could be on high alert and say, "Oh, what's going on? Let me just kind of check all of this out." And the ears could be forward and things like that.
So moving on from, I suppose, the more general pieces, then let's start breaking down the dog into the pieces, which sounds a lot more gruesome than I meant it to. But let's take the dog piece by piece. So maybe if we start with the tail, because we spoke about tails earlier as well.
Yes.
What can we learn about a tail position? And I suppose wagging tails can be maybe a false friend, or maybe it's something that people can recognize as a happy sign sometimes. So what can the tail tell us?
Absolutely. So the tail is usually the first thing that people see, and usually everyone, if a new dog comes around, they say, "Oh, their tail is wagging, it's wagging." But dogs' tails wag in different kind of ways. So a happy tail is kind of like a helicopter, if they have that type of tail. So it kind of like is going around and it's happy, and so just think helicopter happy. Or sometimes it's like a figure eight, like a nice slow, and it's just kind of making like an infinity figure eight sign. But sometimes if it's a tall tail, like if it's a little bit stiff and the tail is all the way up, that could kind of be like an alert, or an arousal situation. So there's more to look at. So if you see that type of tail, there's more to look at in the body before you make a decision. And then also there's always the tucked tail, which makes me sad because sometimes that could mean that the dog is very frightened or concerned about something. So that's when we step in, of course, and just try to change the situation to make them less stressed.
Definitely. And then the eyes are another big telltale part as well, right? So
Yes,
you've got things like
absolutely.
whale eyes people talk about a lot.
Yes, so the whale eyes, that's sometimes found in resource guarding. So what they do is you see the big white bit of the eye, and it's usually directed at what the dog thinks is a threat. So say they have like a big juicy bone there on the ground and someone comes over to try to take it away from them, they could kind of like shoot them a big eye, whale eye, and just kind of say, I don't really like what you're doing there. And that's a very good sign of kind of fear or something they're afraid of being taken away from them. Um, but also like squinty eyes. So if they have like nice soft, like almondy eyes and they're kind of gentle and things like that, that's a nice look for dogs to have. They're kind of relaxed, they're happy, they're ready to meet whatever is going on around them. They're ready to meet other dogs. That's a nice look. Nice soft almond shape. Blinking. Sometimes you see dogs like do like a soft, like kind of blink. That's usually to diffuse the situation, or like they don't want to be confrontational in any way for
Mhm.
that. So.
And then the opposite, I guess, with the blinking, then staring. I'm guessing this kind of comes down to breed because there are breeds that are just known to stare. I mean, if your collie is staring at something in the distance, that's just them being them, probably. But
There
then there's hard stares as well, right?
Yes, so but now if the collies, yes, if they're especially if they're working line and
Mhm.
they're picking out everything that's going on in that movement. But their eyes are generally soft when they're doing that. It's just that they can see everything that's going on and they're ready to make their next move.
Mhm.
In general, if humans, we try not to stare at dogs. So if you ever like volunteer at a shelter, or if say even you're going over your friend's house and you're just meeting a new dog, try not to stare at the dog. They find that kind of rude behavior. It's so just like walk in, kind of look away, and kind of soft body language as well. But yeah, usually the hard stare is like a confrontational, I don't like what you're doing. I'm watching everything that is going on. And that can be accompanied by a little bit of the whale eye as well.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're with the collie, their eyes are they're focused, but they're soft, they're gentle, they're just
Sure.
looking. So yeah, it's all about context, really.
Yeah. And do we see side eye a lot as well with dogs? I know that
Yes.
that Ruby, our little Frenchie, maybe we're reading too much into it, but for example, if we're, um being ridiculously loud in evenings when she thinks it's bedtime at 7 p.m., she'll often sit up and do a little side eye across to you, but I don't know if we're reading too much into it. Is that something from the canine literature?
The side eye, I feel like that is like a Frenchie and Chihuahua situation. They're just like, okay, are you doing something that is interrupting what I'm doing? Or
Yeah,
do I have to actually like watch this? So I think usually the rest of their body is very relaxed and kind of,
totally. Yeah.
yeah. So it's more of just like it's a personality thing, I would say.
Yeah, when Ruby does it, she's definitely fed up with
Yeah.
whatever we're doing at that time. Um, and I suppose with humans, you can tell a lot about pupil dilation as well. Is this something we see in dogs too?
Yeah, absolutely. So pupil dilation, that can be, they can be afraid. So like, did they just hear fireworks that went off in the distance? They don't like fireworks, so their
Mm.
pupils can get a bit dilated, kind of the adrenaline system is going. But it also can be like, ooh, mom came home and I smell chicken and she's going to give me a chicken wing. So like anticipation as well.
High alert, it could be in all sorts of categories, really.
Yeah, so it could be one side of the spectrum to the other. So like yeah, if even if it's like a storm, like a thunderstorm, and dogs can hear before us as well. So
Hmm.
you kind of look at the rest of their body and did they go over to their bed and are they kind of worried? Or like, did you just walk in with dominoes and they're thinking they're gonna get the crust? So
It depends on the situation, as always. And I suppose so you can tell so much from the eyes. Let's move on to the mouth. I suppose there's lots of fun indicators here, like growling, snarling, snapping. These are probably the most, I suppose, obvious, or maybe obvious to humans, cues. Would you say?
Yeah, so those are kind of things that are progressive. So like
Hmm.
the growling, the snarling, and the snapping, that kind of happens in progression to things that maybe we might have missed before that. So like we'll start with, say, a relaxed dog. So if you're ever petting your dog and you kind of look at their mouth and it's like really droopy and like there's no muscle contraction there, and they're just kind of like, oh, okay, that's obviously a good thing. And then sometimes it might be like kind of like a horizontal mouth. So maybe like it looks like a fan is blowing on their mouth. That could be unsure. They're unsure of the situation. They're unsure of maybe even the person that's around them.
Hmm.
And then it can move on to like vertical. So kind of like that, the lip kind of comes up. And you can kind of see little teeth a little bit there, and that's when you want to give space to the dog, or if somebody else is around them, you want to call your dog over and just kind of take them out of the situation that's stressing them out.
Hmm.
Um, so that can lead to the growling, which is a good thing. That's a communication. I love growls. I never punish a growl because that's communication. And I would much rather a dog growl because somebody missed the other signs. So that lets me know that I need to step in immediately versus me missing all of that and then them having to snap because for pet dogs, like a bite is always the absolute last resort.
Hmm.
So we have all of these things that we can watch that are working up to that, which is something that we don't really want, but unfortunately does happen because we do miss all of these subtle body language signs from dogs and things like that. But yeah, I never punish a growl. If I hear that, I know whatever is going on. I missed the signs before that, and we can kind of diffuse the situation, make sure everyone is safe. Yeah, the snarling, I suppose that would be like, the lip is really tightly curled up and you can
Hmm.
kind of see the little tooth there. And people say that as well, like, oh, I went to the vet and, the dog snarled. And yeah, like that's something that can be worked on, cooperative care, things like that to make the dog more comfortable. That's really an uncomfortable situation for the dog anyways. The vet has lots of smells, and so they're already aroused when they go in there, and then this
Hmm.
like random person that they don't know is grabbing the back of their neck and they're like, oh, hold on a second now. So those are things that we like never punish, and we always just kind of try to communicate with our dog and let them know that like we're here for them and we're going to help them be more comfortable.
And I suppose for the snarling and snapping, that's not going to really happen so much in a playful context. Whereas I feel like there can be a playful growl, right? I mean, and it's very distinct that, if you've got a little growler, it's in a playful context, you're going to know it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So the growls, there are definitely different, I call them tones,
Hmm.
different like volumes as well, different lengths and things like that. So sometimes, it might just be like a lazy growl, like two large dogs are playing and they kind of went too hard, and you might just hear like a that's kind of just one of them being like, oh, that hurt. Like, let's not do that again. And that's
Yeah.
usually followed by like a shake off and everything is cool. Whereas like if you hear like a really low, long growl, you want to kind of look at the context, what's going on, what's the rest of the dog's body language, and see where you can go from that, because that could mean like, hey, you missed everything else that I was trying to tell you.
Mhm.
So this is my last resort before I have to react.
And I suppose you can, I've seen like a more aggressive growl as well with an adult dog, especially an older adult dog, and a puppy in a play context that is no longer fun anymore. You know, they're kind of saying, okay, here's the line, we're done now, right?
Yes, exactly. And that's communication between the dogs. That's really great. And we want to kind of make sure we help that puppy understand that they need to listen to that
Yeah.
before the older dog, because uh, older dogs are very patient and they'll usually let the puppy hang off of them and do
Hmm.
whatever until he's had enough. And then he gives them, that like, okay, I want to go lay down again. And we need to kind of be there as well to help that puppy understand that, because that's really how they communicate with each other. Is
Hmm.
I'm sure that older dog gave that puppy like signal. He probably tried to turn, he probably tried to walk away, go to his bed, and the puppy was just like, no, we're going to keep doing this. So yeah, you have to look again at the context of it. Like if the older dog is on his bed, he's said, I'm done. He wants to go to his space now. So we need to help that puppy do something else.
Yeah, the boundary has been found.
Yes.
And then I suppose more to do with the mouth than, things like licking lips and licking nose. Again, context, when you haven't just brought in pizza.
Yeah.
Um, these things can be, I suppose, quite positive, but could also be something that could indicate aggression is on the way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So, like you said, the long lip lick, say like after you give them a Kong filled with peanut butter, and they're kind of like, that was great, okay. But we quite often miss the little quick tongue flicks,
Hmm.
and dogs use that a lot to communicate with each other. So they're like, okay, I'm not really sure of this situation. I don't really like what you're doing, but I'm not really sure if I have to act right now, or is there like an exit for me? So they kind of give that little it's like a quick flick of the tongue there. Um Sometimes dogs with longer tongues, it can reach the nose and you can kind of see it more. So like the tongue actually will reach the nose, and they can show it that way. But yeah, that would definitely be something, even too, if you're petting a dog and say, they don't know how to tell you that they're done. So they try to move away, and then you're like, it happens a lot with children as well.
Hmm.
They kind of crowd the dog and they grab them and pull them in and things like that. And so then you see the dog gives that lick, and that's when you really need to step in and say, okay, guys, that's enough. Let's give the dog space. He's not sure of what's going on. So that's a really good tool,
Hmm.
or that's a really good sign, that the dog is just really unsure of the situation and they just need space and they just need to relax.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then you mentioned something that's more difficult for me to pronounce in your notes, the agonistic pucker.
Yes, the agonistic pucker, which is like the C-shaped kind of lip movement that you can
Hmm.
see. It's very pronounced. So like if you look from the side at a dog, you can actually, like, it actually literally looks like their lip is making a C. And that usually goes along with kind of like the tight whiskers. It happens a lot in like resource guarding cases. So again, like a dog has a toy or a dog is on a piece of furniture that they feel they don't want to lose or whatever. They might show that before they growl, before they snap, things like that. So yeah, the agonistic pucker is very important. It's quite pronounced, so you will be able to see that definitely.
Hmm. And then moving for something that's quite pronounced to something that I think a lot of us would probably overlook, yawning.
Yes, yawning, yeah. Yawning is really interesting, because dogs do it a lot to diffuse situations.
Hmm.
And usually, like, we say, "Oh, if the dog, oh, they're so lazy, the dog's yawning." Like, yeah, okay, if they're just got up from their nap or whatever and they're
Yeah.
doing their stretch, no problem. But like it's usually used in diffusing situations, so you might see them kind of making themselves smaller and then yawning. And then usually if the other dog is really good at reading body language, then they'll kind of go away and say, "Oh, okay, I understand. He's done with whatever we're doing now," as
Hmm.
well. So yeah, that's a really good thing that dogs can do, as well. And also, like, people do that too. Like, if they're people actually yawn when they're nervous as well.
Mm,
So
okay.
if we're in like a big room full of people and we're about to give a presentation, we yawn. And if you ever are looking at somebody else yawning, usually you yawn as well. So you
Yeah.
kind of feel that release of tension, that release of energy, and you're like, okay, let's just
So we all do it to diffuse situations.
Yes, so that yeah, so now you're going to be looking at everybody yawning and being like, "Oh, who needs to relax?"
Okay, and then moving on to something that I'm hoping humans don't do a whole lot of, for reasons of aggression at least, hypersalivation.
Yes. Yeah, so that is when a dog is absolutely over aroused with the situation, totally stressed out. Everything in the body is going, adrenaline system is going, glands are going, and they just don't know, the stomach juices are going and everything, and they're just excessive drooling. Sometimes it's like white, kind of foamy as well.
Hmm.
The dog just really needs to kind of step away from the situation. So look at the context. It could be like you're having a party at your house, and a dog that might be used to only having two people home all of a sudden now has like 35 people in the house.
Hmm.
They don't know how to tell you that they need to go away, they need a safe space. So they're usually kind of just like not moving around much. Their body isn't necessarily stiff, but it's not really relaxed either. And they're just kind of not feeling well. Um, so yeah, that hypersalivation, they really need to kind of just step back and if they're crate trained, great, pop them in the crate. If they have their own, space that they can go to, even better, and just let them chill out.
And then you mentioned already, kind of related to the hypersalivation, or can be at least the hyperventilation, so the panting. These are kind of related to each other as well in a stress situation, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So the panting, I actually watch out for that in man trailing as well. So if a dog is trying to find, if a dog is learning a new component and they're really struggling with that, it could, even if it's not a hot day or whatever, the sun is not out, they could start panting. And that's kind of when we stop learning that component just for a minute and give the dog a break, because like they're not panting because they just ran down a field to go get the ball.
Yeah.
They're panting because their heart rate is up and they're a little bit tense, they're feeling unsure of everything, and they're just trying to calm themselves down really, and kind of get rid of that excess energy. So again, yeah, you have to really look at the context of what's going on. Is it something that they can't figure out? Like, or sometimes if a dog has separation anxiety as well,
Hmm.
they could be panting because you're leaving the house. So yeah, you have to watch out for that as well, because it's not good for them to get all worked up like that.
And context is so important for that one in particular, like you say, because they could be if they've just done a lot of sports or whatever, that's gonna, that you can explain that. Or if it's 30 degrees Celsius, not very likely in Ireland, but like things like that can happen. We actually had this situation with Ruby a couple of years back when we lived in Germany. We did have a day where it was really hot, and we thought that she was getting heat stroke because
Oh,
I could see inside her mouth, inside the gums, she went pale. So we thought it was heat stroke and took her to the vet. It actually wasn't. She was in anaphylactic shock because she got a bee sting. But
oh,
we were blaming this on the situation. So you know, understanding your situation can tell some of the story, but it's still worthwhile, keeping a really keen eye on what the rest of the body is doing.
yeah,
Um,
the poor thing.
yeah, exactly. And she was all good straight out, like got a shot
Got her
and
shot, yeah.
was totally good after it. But it was I suppose looking at the whole body, that she was breaking out in almost hives around her body and kind of lumps on the skin and stuff. That we said, okay, this is not just panting. There's something else going on here,
Yes. And
So
that's so
situation.
good that you were connected enough to figure that out, because sometimes we forget and we just look and we say, oh yeah, well, the dog is just panting, like whatever. But like,
There have there have to be some benefits to being a helicopter parent.
yeah,
so
I
so
agree.
do keep your eyes open for hyperventilation. And then I suppose moving on from the mouth itself, but around the mouth, you mentioned already whiskers and lumpy whisker beds and whiskers out to the side versus kind of, close to the face. What can the whiskers tell us? Because I think we forget about those a
We
little.
do, yeah. So we can you can really see the whisker kind of bed, um, and the base of them. Like if you can see the base of where the whiskers are attached, that's really a sign of tension for the dog. So that goes along with anything that's happening with the mouth, the tightening of the mouth, either the horizontal or the vertical. You want to look at that as well, because the dog could be really tense about what's going on. So again, like, is there, are there fireworks going on somewhere? Is there like a pack of dogs that's running at them and they don't really know what to do, like things like that. So yeah, you'll be able to see actually like where the whiskers kind of attach.
It's almost like goosebumps, right? When on
Exactly.
our
It's
hands or whatever, yeah.
Yes, it's almost like goosebumps on the mouth, because you don't really, that would usually be smooth in most other situations. So if you can see that, there's a bit of something going on, and you want to really, yeah, kind of help your dog out there.
Yeah, yeah. So there's loads of signs, and we've gone through so many of them. Have we missed out on anything massive that we should be looking at?
Um, I'm just trying to think here. I think we covered, yeah, like we pretty much covered eyes, mouth, tail, just looking at the whole body. So like, it's always interesting to look at other people's dogs as well to see the difference in relaxation. So like,
Hmm.
dogs that are out walking with their owners, are they completely relaxed, or are they a bit tense because the person's pulling them on the lead and they really want to sniff or whatever. So that's good way to kind of judge different breeds and how they each of them look relaxed, because it's good to know as well, say like you have a new puppy, um but you want to be able to know if you need to call your puppy away from
Hmm.
somebody else's dog, because that dog might look a little stressed. So it kind of goes both ways as well to kind of help each other out.
Definitely. And reading the room, like you mentioned this when we were speaking about yawning, if the other dog kind of reads that and gives space,
Yeah.
that's something, a beautiful thing that I've learned from speaking with all of you trainers and behaviorists, that creating space can diffuse the situation nicely. So I guess that's a good way of predicting what the next step in this interaction could be. Are things going to go well because the other dog is saying, "Oh, okay, you're stressed. I'm going to give you a little bit more space."
Yeah.
That's going to likely be, a situation that gets a little bit better for everyone involved. Whereas if, I guess from what you're saying, if a dog is kind of going further into the situation and has other signs of maybe more aggressive behavior and is a little bit more full on, maybe you could predict, oh wow, this could go down the wrong path here. So I suppose like it's always about reading the room, isn't it, and seeing who's
Exactly.
who's involved.
Yeah, reading the room, yeah, is such a great thing. That's why it's so interesting just to know, obviously this is kind of like the baseline of everything. And like it's for pet dogs, like it's just, so many pet dogs have the same kind of body language that it's great if you know these little bits, you can kind of help out other people as well.
Mm.
And not just your own dog too. So it's kind of a good communication for humans as well.
Yeah.
Just to kind of communicate with each other and watch how the dogs are interacting with each other. And then, say, oh, hey, I noticed your dog is stressed. I'm just going to give your dog a little bit of space there. Um, yeah, so
Which a lot of people will appreciate. And I think one of the things that I wanted to ask as well is, at what point do you think people should be calling in a trainer or behaviorist?
yeah, so trainers, definitely they can, for pet dogs, they can help out with things like resource guarding. We can help out with things like reactivity, because we'll be able to read the body language, even something simple like sit or down. If someone's trying to teach their dog down, there's a few different ways to actually go down. So if the dog is stressed with whatever way they're doing it, we might be able to say, oh, hey, here, there's this other way that we might be able to show you, and then kind of help the person out that way as well. So trainers can do a lot of things with the basics of making sure that the dogs live in harmony with their humans, because we
Mhm.
do need to share our space. And then obviously you can call a behavior consultant, definitely, if anything is progressing where it's getting in the way of the dog living like a happy life. And if now the dog doesn't want to go out on a walk, or the dog is constantly panting all the time, then we can definitely step in then.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you.
such an insight into a little window into this incredible world about dog body language and potential aggression situations. You have an interesting event scheduled coming up very, very soon in Ireland for those people listening in. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
I do. I am so excited to be hosting Mike Shikashio again here. He was here a few years ago, but I saw him last year in Boston, and I had a conversation with him there while I was at the workshop, and he is just like the most humble man and so knowledgeable on aggression. He has like a whole course on aggression in dogs, and I invited him here May 24th and 25th this year in Athlone, so center of the country, so everybody, it's accessible for everybody. And he will do 2 full days workshop. It's humans invited, um, and it's at the Radisson Blue. So there will be a little bit where we can kind of use toy dogs to show each other like how to diffuse a situation if the dog becomes aggressive. So that's always good. I like kind of breaking out into groups of trainers and stuff like that. But yeah, so May 24th and 25th, Radisson Blue, Athlone, Mike Shikashio will be here. So
And from my perspective, I've been to one of your workshops in that exact location. It's a brilliant location.
yes.
Like you say, it's super accessible. It's a really, really nice place to be. A great way of getting together with other people kind of from the industry as well, and other people that really are enthusiastic about dogs and all dog topics.
Yes.
And yeah, there are tickets still available, correct?
There are tickets still available. Yep. So,
And we'll put the link directly into the show notes as
he's
well for people to check out.
amazing. So I can't wait to see all of the beautiful faces there, and and everybody. Yeah. So, that's it. So we'll see you May 24th and 25th.
Thank you so, so much, Nicole. I've really, really loved speaking with you once again, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Yes, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right. We'll chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.
And once again, a huge thank you to Nicole for coming on and speaking with us on the podcast this week and for sharing such valuable information about a really, really tricky topic. Of course, every single dog is an individual and every situation is unique. So the more you kind of take the topics that we spoke about today and apply those to watching your own dog, watching other people's dogs out in the wild, you're definitely going to start analysing these situations and understanding dogs' body language that bit better. So the very best of luck on your body language analysis. And additionally, while you're here, you might like to check out our show notes where you will find social media handles and websites for both Ruby Reese and for Nicole. You can also find Nicole's upcoming event, the direct booking link in the show notes as well. And of course, we would really, really appreciate if you followed this podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps us to get in front of more people like you and I that are absolutely crazy about all things dog. We will be back to you with yet another episode next Tuesday. Thank you very much for listening in and hope to see you around soon.